Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into something, well, pretty fascinating and definitely complex. It's all unfolding right now in the South Caucasus.
Hmm. A region that's, historically just a web of intricate power dynamics.
Exactly. And what we're seeing now feels like a really dramatic transformation. It's centered around this incredibly ambitious new infrastructure project.
Hmm.
So here's the hook. There's a pivotal new corridor project in the South Caucasus, and it's rapidly reshaping the regional power dynamics. It's sparking, well, immense hope for stability on one side.
But also some really strong, fierce opposition on the other.
Right. It's a U.S.-backed transit link.
Yeah.
They're calling it the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIPP for short. It cuts directly through Armenia.
And the Qam aim, it's about finally connecting Azerbaijan proper to its Nakhchivan exclave and then pushing further into Turkey, basically bypassing those old bottlenecks, the historic routes.
Yeah. And its proponents, they're hailing it as, a landmark achievement, promising huge economic potential, boosting energy exports, and they say dramatically cutting trade times between China and Europe.
But like you said, not everyone's cheering. Not by a long shot.
No. Iran, for instance, fiercely rejects it. They're calling it political treachery.
And a direct threat. They see it impacting their territorial integrity, their regional influence.
Tehran seems to view the corridor as, well, a pathway for more NATO presence.
And maybe a way to stir up pan-Turkic sentiments along its borders, which for them is destabilizing.
And Armenia. They signed it, but they're navigating some really complex concerns. Sovereignty, potential marginalization.
Understandably, trying to find balance in this new, sort of uncertain landscape.
Meanwhile, you've got Russia watching cautiously. They're clearly wary of Western intervention in what they still see as their backyard.
Absolutely. So it's this incredibly complex web, isn't it? Alliances, ambitions, deep-seated fears.
It makes the TRIPP corridor much more than just asphalt and rails. It's a high-stakes gamble.
A gamble with the future of a really critical global crossroads.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to cut through those headlines. We want to really understand the intricate layers of this whole development.
Yeah, explore the motivations, the benefits people see, but also those profound concerns.
Yeah.
From all the key players.
Exactly. And we're drawing from a whole range of sources, official White House statements, expert geopolitical analyses, trying to give you the most comprehensive, nuanced look possible.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is just how deeply history, geography, and, well, raw ambition are all tangled up in this one project. It's not just about laying down infrastructure, is it? It's about fundamentally redrawing the lines.
Lines of influence, lines of power.
In a historically turbulent but strategically vital region. And for many involved, this isn't just about trade figures. It feels like it's about survival.
Okay, so to ground us in the facts, could you describe what the TRIPP corridor physically is? Like, what is it on the map?
Sure. So at its core, the TRIPP, the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, it's this proposed 43-kilometer transit link. It's designed to run through Armenia's Syunik province. That's a mountainous area in the south of the country.
Okay.
Its main sort of immediate purpose is to create that direct land connection for mainland Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave, which, is separated by Armenian territory, and then onwards to Turkey.
Right. I've also heard it called the Zangezur Corridor.
That's right. Zangezur after the historical region, where sometimes you'll hear it talked about as part of the broader Middle Corridor.
Ah, the Middle Corridor. Explain that a bit.
Well, the Middle Corridor is this emerging east-west trade concept. It's about connecting Central Asia and China to Europe, but going via the Caucasus and Turkey, basically offering an alternative to the, let's say, traditional routes, like the northern one through Russia or the southern one via Iran, which can be longer, politically complicated.
And what's the story behind how this specific, pretty ambitious project actually happened?
Well, it really comes out of a significant U.S. brokered peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. This was signed August 8th, 2025 at the White House, a pretty historic moment.
And the key players signing.
You had President Donald Trump, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan.
Okay. And the stated goals for this corridor, they sound massive.
They are incredibly ambitious. The U.S. and its partners, They're aiming to significantly boost energy exports, especially from the Caspian region, and just general trade flows. They're talking about reducing transit times between China and Europe by, get this, 10 to 15 days.
Wow, that's huge.
It really is. And providing a crucial alternative to those routes, the ones usually controlled by Russia and Iran. Take Azerbaijan, for example, major energy producer. They're projecting an initial cargo capacity of like 15 million tons a year on this route.
15 million.
Yeah, with plans to scale that up to 50 million tons by 2030. Oh. And they're also expecting to attract something like $10 billion in private investment by 2027. Mostly in things like renewables, projects that could use the corridor for export.
Now, here's where it gets, for me, particularly compelling. The depth of U.S. involvement. It seems to go way beyond just brokering a deal. We're looking at a really significant financial and strategic commitment, aren't we?
Absolutely.
My sources point to exclusive U.S. development rights for this route, managed by a U.S.-backed private entity. And get this, under a 100-year lease model, a whole century. That time frame immediately makes you think of, well, historical parallels, like the Panama Canal. What does a comparison like that really mean here?
Yeah, that Panama Canal comparison, it's not just a catchy phrase, it really speaks volumes. It suggests a profound, century-long strategic commitment, one that fundamentally redefines what sovereignty means in practice for that stretch of land.
Oh, so?
Well, okay, formally, Armenia keeps legal jurisdiction. The plan is for the corridor to operate under Armenian law, but giving long-term exclusive development rights to a foreign-backed entity, that creates a truly unique situation, a precedent, really. This isn't just about, say, short-term investment or transit fees. It's about embedding a foreign strategic presence for generations. It potentially gives the U.S. and its partners huge leverage over a critical geopolitical artery for the next 100 years. This could touch everything from, local governance, regional alignments, trade policy, even security dynamics, way beyond the immediate economic numbers.
So it implies a really deeply intertwined future.
Exactly. Where Armenia's economic path, maybe even its political trajectory, is partly tied to this long-term U.S.-backed project. And the money involved backs that up. It's substantial.
Yeah, what are the figures?
We're talking about $2 billion in guarantees from the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, the DFC, and another $5 billion in loans from the World Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB.
Okay, significant capital.
Definitely. And the U.S. is quite explicit about the framing. They position this as a direct response to China's massive Belt and Road Initiative. It's about positioning the U.S. as a strategic counterweight in, Eurasian infrastructure development.
So, neutralizing Russian and Iranian leverage.
That seems to be the clear strategy. Reduce their control over vital energy and trade flows and effectively align the South Caucasus more closely with Western, maybe even NATO, interests.
So, okay, we have this corridor, born from a peace deal, backed by serious U.S. money, designed to kind of realign influence for a century. But as we're about to see, not everyone views this as a path to peace. The fault lines here run really deep. With that understanding of the corridor itself, how are the nations most directly affected? How are they grappling with this new reality? Let's maybe start with those who seem clearly supportive.
Right. Well, for Azerbaijan and Turkey, the vision seems largely unified, and it's overwhelmingly positive. Azerbaijan strongly supports it because, well, it gives them that crucial direct land link to Nakhchivan, then into Turkey. Strategically, it bypasses both Iran and Russia.
Which is key for them.
Absolutely. They see it as a massive boost for their energy exports, for trade across the region. We mentioned those big cargo projections. And they expect billions in private investment, not just logistics, but manufacturing and especially renewable energy, which they could then export via this route.
And this comes after their success in the Second Karabakh War.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Post-war, Azerbaijan has shown, increased boldness, more confidence. They're clearly aiming for regional ascendancy, and they're bolstered by strong partnerships with Turkey and also with Israel. This corridor is really central to that whole ambition.
And Turkey's perspective.
Turkey sees it as a very beneficial development, their words. They think it could link Europe with the depths of Asia via Turkey. It strengthens their own position as that pivotal hub in the middle corridor concept. And as a key NATO ally, Turkey anticipates gaining something like $4 billion a year in exports through the corridor. It really solidifies their regional clout, their strategic importance.
Okay, so that's the enthusiasm. But then we swing over to Iran. Which sees this corridor not as peace and prosperity, but as something, well, far more sinister, a profound threat.
That's absolutely right. Iran unequivocally rejects the corridor. They've called it political treachery, a direct threat to their territorial integrity, their regional influence. It hits them on multiple levels.
I saw a quote from Ali Akbar Veliati, a top advisor to the supreme leader.
Yes, he went on record stating Iran would block the initiative with or without Russia. Very strong language. And he added, quite menacingly, that this passage will not become a gateway for Trump's mercenaries. It will become their graveyard.
Wow, that's exceptionally strong.
Yeah.
Signals really deep, almost existential opposition.
It does. And their concerns are multifaceted, deeply rooted. First, maybe most critically, is the fear of losing their direct land connection with Armenia.
Why is that specific connection so important?
For Iran, that link is a vital strategic lifeline. It's a stable border. It's non-Turkic, non-Russian. It gives them direct access to the South Caucasus and, crucially, towards the Black Sea region, bypassing their rivals. Tehran worries the corridor would basically fragment Armenia, severely restrict Iran's own regional access, cut off that stable alliance, and leave them feeling more isolated.
Okay, that makes sense. Cut off.
Second, they see it as a way for NATO to strategically position itself like a viper, as they put it, right between Iran and Russia, expanding Western influence near their borders, creating a new geopolitical front.
And the Turkish influence aspect.
Third, yes, Iran is deeply wary of growing Turkish influence and the potential incitement of pan-Turkic sentiments among its own large Azerbaijani minority, that's a long-standing internal security worry for them, could jeopardize their territorial integrity. Plus, the strengthening ties between Israel and Azerbaijan, that also raises major security flags for Iran. They see that cooperation as a direct threat on their northern flank.
And economically.
Finally, yeah, economically. This middle corridor could significantly undercut Iran's own transit routes, like their North-South Corridor project. And it could impact their energy exports, because European countries might have another way to get Caspian energy, circumventing Iran and Russia.
So how has Iran reacted on the ground?
They've held large-scale military exercises near the Azerbaijan border. They've activated diplomatic channels, talking to Armenia and Russia, trying to build opposition. They're even working on alternative transit routes through their own territory, trying to connect Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan that way, hoping to make this TRIPP corridor, well, redundant.
Interesting.
And they opened a consulate in Kapan, Armenia. That's in the very province the corridor would cross. A clear signal of their intense focus on this specific area.
Which brings us to Armenia. Literally caught right in the middle of these huge competing ambitions, they face a deeply complex reality. They sign the deal, yet they seem so vulnerable.
Indeed. Yeah, despite being a signatory, Armenia largely perceives this corridor as, quote, deeply tilted against Armenia, and a significant challenge to its territorial integrity. There's a real fear there of further marginalization, maybe even a sort of de facto fragmentation.
And their traditional security partner, Russia.
Well, those ties, which were once their main guarantee, they've been severely eroded. Armenia felt a lack of support during recent conflicts, so that's forced Yerevan to desperately look for new security partners towards the west.
Like the EU monitors and French weapons.
Exactly, welcoming EU border monitors, actively seeking defensive weaponry from France. It signals a really significant geopolitical pivot away from Moscow.
But the relationship with Iran remains important.
Very much so. It's stable and strategically crucial, mainly because of Armenia's geography. They're isolated, bordered by often hostile Azerbaijan and Turkey, no direct sea access. So the prospect of this Zengezur corridor bypassing Armenia, potentially cutting off that southern link to Iran, that's a major concern for both Yerevan and Tehran. It compromises that vital land connection.
So what's Armenia's official stance on the corridor itself?
They insist on maintaining full sovereignty and legal jurisdiction over any route within their borders. They've been explicit. They won't allow borders to change, and they won't allow this to become some kind of extraterritorial zone controlled by others.
So they're trying to manage the risks?
Yeah, actively exploring ways to ensure Armenian control over how it operates, looking for a way to mitigate those perceived risks while maybe still getting some benefit from potential trade. It's a tough balancing act.
And what about Russia, the pivotal traditional power broker in this region? How have they reacted to this major shift, especially with their own focus elsewhere?
Well, Russia cautiously welcomed the initial peace deal itself, but they immediately followed up with strong warnings against what they called outside intervention in regional affairs. They keep emphasizing that lasting solutions should ideally be worked out by the countries in the region.
Kind of a jab at the U.S. involvement.
Seems like it. Avoiding the unfortunate experience, as they put it, of Western-led conflict resolution elsewhere. It's a clear reflection of their own grievances with Western foreign policy.
But their influence has waned, hasn't it?
Oh, significantly. Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, their influence in the South Caucasus has noticeably decreased. That conflict diverted resources, attention, credibility. It created a kind of strategic gap.
A gap that others are filling.
Precisely. Turkey and Azerbaijan are actively and quite skillfully moving into that space, which challenges Moscow's traditional role as the main security arbiter, the key player in energy flows in this critical buffer zone.
And they share Iran's concerns about NATO.
Yes, they share that profound concern that the corridor could facilitate increased NATO or just broader Western influence in a region they've long considered their strategic backyard. So they're clearly watching very closely, weighing their options, trying to figure out how to regain or at least stabilize their diminished leverage.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Thinking beyond just the immediate regional players, what are the broader sort of global implications of this TRIPP corridor?
Globally, I think this corridor sends a really clear signal in our increasingly multipolar world. It's overtly positioned by the U.S. as a strategic countermove to China's huge Belt and Road Initiative.
Right, setting up Washington as a rival force in Eurasian infrastructure.
Exactly. And the South Caucasus region itself, it's increasingly described as a battleground for competing international powers. You've got Russia, Turkey, Iran, the West, all vying for influence there. This corridor is explicitly designed to try and shift that influence away from Russia and Iran, to strengthen Western and NATO ties in the South Caucasus, potentially rebalance global supply chains, offer an economic artery that bypasses those traditional choke points. It's definitely a key piece on the bigger geopolitical chessboard.
Which, of course, raises a really important question. With so much at stake, so many powerful interests clashing, what are the potential risks? What could actually derail this incredibly ambitious project?
Oh, the challenges are, they're significant and multi-layered. Iranian opposition, first off, remains a major wild card. Tehran hasn't just made threats. They could potentially leverage influence over, say, Armenian diaspora groups, or even try to covertly foster instability within Armenia itself to delay or sabotage the project.
Their concerns run deep, so they're unlikely to just back down.
Exactly. Then there's Russia. Okay, their influence is diminished, but they haven't just abandoned their desire for dominance in the region. They could still try to disrupt things, maybe through diplomatic pressure, economic leverage, or possibly even proxy actions, using actors aligned with Moscow to complicate Western access.
And within Armenia itself.
That's another risk. Significant internal Armenian opposition could lead to widespread unrest, especially if the deal becomes widely seen as, further eroding their national sovereignty or leaving the country more isolated. And then there's the basic economics and stability. The long-term viability depends heavily on sustained demand for trade and energy flowing through there, and crucially, on avoiding more geopolitical disruptions in what is, let's face it, an inherently conflict-prone region.
Right. Any renewed flare-ups, even small ones,
could send investors running, could make the whole route seem impractical very quickly.
So what we've really unpacked today is this incredibly complex, high-stakes web. Ambition clashing with apprehension. You have this U.S.-backed corridor pitched for peace and prosperity.
But it's clashing directly with Iran's really deep-seated security and economic fears.
All while Armenia is trying to find its footing, stuck in this uniquely vulnerable position.
And Russia's watching its long-held influence get challenged, right, in a region it once pretty much dominated.
So as the South Caucasus reshapes itself, and you can see these new routes, these shifting alliances defining its future, maybe consider this. In a world where infrastructure projects now increasingly define geopolitical power, where they shape alliances, will this Trump route for international peace and prosperity actually pave the way for genuine, lasting regional peace?
Or will it simply redraw the lines of contention for the next generation, maybe setting the stage for even greater instability down the road?
Something to think about. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring the fascinating and, often tense dynamics of this really critical global crossroads.